This is where the Phil Donahue Show started 10 years ago. The first person to sit across from me at this table was Madeleine Murray O'Hare, an atheist who was making people angry by trying to ban prayer in school. Tonight, we'll review some of the shows that we've saved from the last 10 years, and you'll get to meet my staff, and for the 2,451st time, we hope that on this program, you'll join us.
Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Donahue.
Thank you. To come home again. Oh, I landed. I thought, you are #1, baby. You've got the Emmy. Nobody can take that as for granted. I didn't walk off that plane yesterday. I marched. I came down that stairs. You know, I can look humble. I really can. I was the first one off the plane. The guy from United at the bottom of the stairs, I thought he was going to salute me. And I thought, now. And he looked me right in the eye when I got to the bottom of the stairs, and he said, "Where's Marlowe?"
In terms of programs that are controversial, not necessarily because of the issue, but controversial in terms of what we are proposing to show on the air, there is I think broadcasters in general are conservative. They tend to, the easy thing on anything is to say no. Because once you've said no, you've solved all your problems. You don't have to put the birth of a baby on. You don't have to show a program about abortion. You don't have to really, you can go ahead with something that's safe and easy. So it has not been always easy for us. What we've attempted to do with broadcasters, with Avco Broadcasting when they own the show, multimedia, general managers around the country, is explain to them that we think we understand and we know, and we're not geniuses, but we think we know what women will accept in the daytime.
What we've discovered is the viewer, the public, will accept much more than the male television censors believe. The male television censors, and they're almost always men, are people who take it upon themselves to protect other adults from information that they decide is not good for them. They also, I think, unfairly use children to determine what should or should not be broadcast. If you make me broadcast only material that can be viewed by children, then you really reduce me to Captain Kangaroo. Also, the human ego responds much more vigorously to criticism than to stroking. If I get 10 letters of congratulations for the show we do, and one negative, one criticism, I always, on the way home, I think about that one critical letter. We've got to put into focus that our show does not always say what people want to hear. We often feature unpopular people with unpopular ideas, but the thing that that's the most important to remember is that most people are grateful for that. Television's problem is not controversy, it is blandness. You know, if you're against Dick Nixon, middle America is just liable to think, listen, anybody this cat is against can't be all bad, I'm going to vote for him.
Yeah, but see, Nixon will find anything he needs to enhance his power. The fact is there's got to be a polarization in the country. There's got to be a polarization. Wait, listen, I get 2 sentences out, and you act like you're like on the toilet, you know, and say, listen, why don't you shut up and let me talk, you know? You invited me down here, you said, you got to come here, we have no music, we have no guests. If you don't come, we have no guests. Now you ask me a question, you keep quiet. Maybe the punchline will contain your answer, you know? So don't be so constipated, okay? Don't be so constipated. I'm just
disappointed
relax.
that you're so...
I'm disappointed in you.
You're so incapable of functioning.
I'm totally incapable of... I'm a misfit. misfit. Haven't you realized? I'm a misfit. I don't fit in to this plastic TV show with this plastic TV personality. I don't fit into that. I don't fit into. And every young kid out there knows that you're plastic. They know you're a plastic man. I don't fit into that. I don't fit into your asking ridiculous questions.
Mr. Matz has sworn under oath that he gave you an envelope containing $10,000 in your office in the basement of the White House while you were Vice President of the United States. And the information is included in a document signed by the Attorney General of the United States. The American public is not to be condemned for at least lending some credence to this accusation.
Am I being called upon to attest to Mr. Matz's credibility? Isn't it important that Mr. Matz was about to go to jail and that Mr. Matz did not go to jail, in fact, was not indicted, was excused completely for his violation of the income tax laws simply in exchange of his testimony for me? He's never even been accused of anything officially. He's walking around out there free today, and the only reason he's free is that he implicated me.
For those of you who've joined us late, Sue is entering her 5th month of pregnancy, having been artificially inseminated with George's sperm, married to Debbie, who had a hysterectomy. And rather than be childless, it sounds like a soap opera.
It's not a soap opera.
To know if it was difficult to find a doctor who would consent to do this for you.
It's very difficult. As a matter of fact, we did not have a doctor.
A doctor did not do the artificial insemination.
We did it ourselves.
And how did you do that? How did you know what to do?
We followed a family medical guide. It gave you everything you had to know about doing artificial insemination.
Mm-hmm. And this is she says, remember, he didn't know me at all, but he said nice things. So she and the House Minority Leader, Gerald Ford, Mo Dean and Jerry Ford had a nice, pleasant conversation. Right. I remembered, you say in your book, Ford had been on crutches that evening, recovering from some sort of accident. And you say, quote, I know, sweetheart, to your wife. He's the kind of guy who's a nice neighbor, but that doesn't mean he's the kind of man Republicans will want as president. He's not well known, and everybody in Washington considers him a lightweight. Then you have an expletive. You said, blank, Mo, you know more about foreign policy than he does, unquote.
Okay,
all right, here's the point. Here's the point. Here you are, a man who was at the center of one of the worst political scandals in the history of this nation. And now it's not bad enough that we had all this trouble, and this is not to deny the wonderful thing you did in finally getting before the committee, raising your hand, and everything you said has stood up. But shouldn't you be the last one to be saying anything negative about anybody in the middle of a campaign?
He asked me to come after 6:30, and when no one else was around, which I did, and you know, and he asked me to come up and, you know, to see him, and so I went up for an interview and stayed. I don't know. He offered me a drink or so, and stayed about an hour or so, and I was wearing hot pants and a body shirt. And what else was I wearing? A chain or something, I don't know. But anyway, I certainly was not dressed, and, you know, in a uniform that I would want to wear, that, you know, a secretary would wear.
Right.
So he didn't ask me, like I said, he didn't ask me if I could type or do anything. He just said, when would you like to come to work? And offered me $8,700, and at that time, I never thought of making $8,700 was like making $1 million. And I was so excited, I just, you know, gladly said, I'll, you know, come to work.
But you will have a hard time getting America to believe that you weren't intending to use your hot pants and your body shirt to your
Oh, I'm
advantage.
not trying to say that I didn't. That's the only asset I had.
The Donahue tradition has included those shows that depart from the typical daily show. They're called Donahue specials, like the week he spent inside a prison.
One of the men who died here helped to perfect the chair.
That's true. Justice, I believe he was the 38th or 39th one. He was doing a sentence here, a minor sentence, grand larceny or something, and helped build the chair, and then later went out on parole and become involved in a murder and came back and was executed in the chair that he helped make.
Right. As we've established, there are 53 men on death row. 27 are black, 26 are white. And in a breakdown of category for crime, you probably know all this, Warden, 5 are here for killing a police officer. 6 are here because they killed their wives. 25 are in death row because they committed murder while performing a robbery. So clearly most of the men are here because a murder took place during a robbery. 4 are here for rape murder, and then 13 miscellaneous murders committed under various circumstances.
I believe to my soul, baby, that you've given me some outside help that I don't think I really need. Now I want you to tell the Iceman the next time he better leave some ice. And I want you to tell the postman that he better ring more than twice. And when I come home from work in the morning, it better still be some grocery on the shelf. And I want you to tell that slick insurance man that he better write some insurance on his cell.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you are about to see is a Phil Donahue special titled The Exceptional Children, 4 stories, a departure from our regular format. On this program, we will take a filmed look at 4 different families which include children who were born handicapped. Was it difficult for you to, at first, go shopping with Susie?
Oh, it really was. When she was a baby, I'd overly wrap her, you know, put more blankets on her than I should and things like this. And then one day it just kind of dawned on me that this isn't the way to do it. I mean, you know, I was hurting her. And I thought, now, I've got to start when she's young, expose her. So I did.
The first victim was in this...
This tree right here, the first victim was laying right in the Y of this tree.
And the second victim was...
The second victim was laying in a Proxy. That's vicinity right here.
They go, what house Paul? And then they go, he's all right, he'll be all right. Then I ask them about Terry, they go, he'll be all right. Then I kept asking about Mike and all of them. They go, he'll be all right. They'll be down here pretty soon. I go, why ain't they here? I'm the only one here. And he goes, they'll be here. Then that's when I knew that they wouldn't be alive.
If I had my way, he would have never got his license, but naturally when a boy turns 16, they keep after you until you do get him. And then you finally break down.
This is the car involved in the accident about which we've been speaking during this hour. This program has raised maybe 1,000 questions, and some observations are in order. To begin with, we, I think, must recognize that we are all candidates for this.
Yeah, I'm proud of the show we did with Albert Speer, who was Hitler's Minister of Armaments in the Third Reich. Very highly placed Nazi, and served 20 years at Spandau, was one of the only defendants at the Nuremberg trials to say, hey, this is my fault. He served 20 years, and his wife waited for him. I mean, waited 20 years. I am just staggered by this story. We went to Heidelberg, Germany, to film him, where he lives now. He's 70, was released from jail in 1966, 46 to 66. And I'll never forget sitting around the table. I saw him the night before, and we were filming the following day. And I remember feeling very ambivalent about it. I didn't know how to feel. Here I was having white wine and a very nice covered dish that Frau Speer had prepared. Here I was dining with one of the leading Nazis of the 30s and 40s. We filmed the next day, and it took us over 4 hours to film 104 minutes. He started to visibly tire toward the end of the interview. And I remember feeling very guilty because I liked him.
And so on.
Now Albert Speer is questioned about the issue of the Jews in Germany before and during the time of the Third Reich. In his second book, Speer states flatly, quote, "Even in the light of the strictest self-examination, I must say that I was not an anti-Semite," unquote.
Can't really say that I had not an inner feeling of some anti-Semitism behind it, but it was no hate. It was not. I was not in a political way. I was not anti-Semitic.
There it is, one of the most exciting pieces of engineering ever. This is the stern, the paddle wheel of the Delta Queen. Chief, how much does that thing weigh?
The total weight of that wheel, the crank and the shaft, is 44 tons. It's 28 feet in diameter and 19 feet across, the width of the paddles.
How many paddles?
There's 28 paddles on there. Every now and then one of those paddles gets knocked off. We get a log in there. We're standing here, we could get hit right in the noodle right now with a log.
You mean she'll pick up a log and just throw it
She'll pick that lumber right up and throw it right over here on the fantail where we're standing.
This must be a maintenance nightmare.
It is. It gives us a lot of headache with the river the way it is.
All right, wasn't this... that was made by the Krupp people in Germany, and the wheel also.
Yes, they were cast overseas, right. These big cranks here were cast overseas, brought over here.
We're at the stern, right at the paddle wheel of the Delta Queen with Chief...
The most intimidating guests that I interview are show business people. I grew up in a newsroom in this business, and I'm not very adept at setting up people like Hope, and Carson scared me to death. I mean, I really was nervous. I remember the first time I interviewed Bob Hope. As you may know, I have a tendency to talk too much, especially if I'm nervous. Sort of, hi, how are you? And Hope would be in the middle of a joke, and I would say, how's Dolores? And the whole, the punchline wouldn't work, the timing was bad, and the audience would sit there and chew gum, and Hope would wonder what he's doing here with this guy from Dayton. I think I've come around a little bit on that. Hope's been on the show now 12, 14 times, so he's a friend, and, I brag about my friend Bob, and I'm not as intimidated as I used to be. But I'd still rather interview Burt Lance than Burt Reynolds.
About 6 or 7 years ago, when Don Dahlman went to WJBK in Detroit, and against overwhelming odds of shows like Dick Cavett and David Frost, sold them on the idea of carrying what at that time was still a regional program called The Phil Donahue Show. And it prompted one of the critics in Detroit to write, I must say, a flattering article, but in it he referred to Dayton, Ohio as the show business capital of the world. He did that because obviously we lived at a time when if it didn't come from New York or it didn't come from LA, then how in the hell could it be any good? We've, I hope, proved that it could be. Dayton certainly was not the show business capital of the world 10 years ago, and the Phil Donahue Show did not get a lot of callbacks from the stars when we tried to book them. But we have had, it's not our forte has been some of the things you've already seen this evening, the issues, the specials, the documentaries. But we enjoy the fact that the celebrities have come through our door and they have done our show. And here are some of our favorites, and I know that Phil certainly thinks that there's a favorite celebrity on here of his.
Here, you want me to hold your purse? All right, I'll take the camera. Go ahead. Come on. You'll be fine, right?
I can't.
Yes, you can. It's easy. What's your name?
Gloria.
Thank you. you married? Oh, sure. You are. Well, he's a together person. We're in Chicago with Gregory Peck. Hi, I'm glad you waited. Are you there?
Yes, Mr. Peck, I think you're just fantastic, obviously, and I admire your work. And my question is...
This is a telephone call. See, it comes out. It's sort of like, how would you say?
I want to meet that girl.
You had a question for Mr. Peck.
Yes, my question is, how does he feel about the films being made today and the actors that seem to be going downgrade? You know, playing in films that are R-rated, if not X-rated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Would you do a nude scene?
Yeah, that's my question.
Oh.
No way. No way. I think actors should make their living with their heads, not with their rear ends.
You get 3 or 4 years of a successful series. I know this is not your interest, but...
No, if I can, I would never be on this show.
You would never.
Be too wealthy, I don't need you.
That's my point.
I don't need you now, but you keep begging and annoying me. I'm just kidding.
You would never have to work again. Isn't that the whole...
No, I don't think anybody can say they never have to work again, especially with a Jewish wife and the jewelry bills. But you can't retire that quick. I mean, I hope someday to retire. Maybe the two of us can sit on the porch and watch our dog die.
There you are. That's... look at the captain there.
Giving orders.
Mm-hmm. And you have chronicled this crossing in...
It's a mortal sin to disobey the captain.
Right.
That's what I was saying there.
That's right. There you are. Isn't that something? Yeah. I wonder what the poor people do.
They go by jet.
Marlo Thomas is back. It's been a couple of years since she last visited with us. You are so thin.
Am I?
Uh-huh. Thinner than I think last time. You've never been fat.
No. I eat a lot of food to try to gain weight, actually.
You want me to move back? Oh, I'm in the way. Excuse me.
Yes?
Oh, shh. I'm upstaging you. Don't you just love these smooth shows?
That's how you got out of dating, huh?
That's...
If a woman wants to have a career and not be married, that's a choice. If a woman wants to have a career and be married and have children, that's a choice. And the thing is, I don't really think we make free choices. I didn't make a free choice. I made a choice based on other people telling me I'd be a bad mother and a bad wife. I mean, that's, you know, motherhood is one of the biggest things we think as young girls about. I mean, we play with dolls since we're 18 months old. You want to be a good mother. Don't you see? I mean, you don't have a choice.
I see that, but you haven't tried it yet, so how can you, you know, try being a mother.
You see what's going on here? You understand what's happening here?
Huh?
You really want her to get married.
No, I don't. Really, you don't have to.
My mother called you before the show, didn't she?
There was no grand plan. No one from above said, let's talk about doing this for 3 months in Dayton and see how it works, and then we're going to syndicate it. It's going to be all over the country, and you guys are going to have the time of your life. No one 10 years ago said, someday you will be moving to Chicago.
If the show blows away, I mean, if the show is canceled everywhere, I will have a nervous breakdown. No, I will miss it, of course. This has been a very unusual opportunity. This is an opportunity which is afforded very few people. It's an education which is not available in any university. I get to meet a lot of big shots. People ask me for my autograph. The money's good. I get my name on television and good tables at restaurants. Don't let anybody tell you that this isn't fun. It is.
I've been noticing lately a lot of calls from New York. A lot of letters from New York, which we just started there in September, wanting us to do subjects that we did 2 or 3 years ago. So I think it helps us to be more productive, to keep in mind there are people that we haven't reached yet.
People did used to get a little excited about some of the shows we've done, but now, quite honestly, sometimes they'll write in or call in or talk to us after the show and ask for some of those types of shows. But to prove that we don't only do sex and controversy, I have some tapes to introduce that are The Adversaries, is the title of this group, and they are Madeline Murray O'Hare, the America's #1 atheist, and Reverend Bob Harrington, the chaplain of Bourbon Street, who brought religion to the B-girls in New Orleans, and is trying to many other people, I think, too. The second tape I think you'll see is Ed Cole and Ralph Nader. Ed Cole, as you know, is the creator was the creator of the Corvair, and Ralph Nader was the executioner of the Corvair. Susan Brown Miller and Eldridge Cleaver is the next tape. Eldridge Cleaver, admitted rapist in his book Soul on Ice, and probably most of you have read that. Also, Susan Brown Miller wrote a book entitled Against Our Will, which was about rape. The other tape is Ellsberg and Westmoreland. Daniel Ellsberg, as you know, is the man who released the Pentagon Papers, and by putting people like this together, putting, say, Ellsberg and Westmoreland together, people would say, oh, it can't be done, or they'll never go on together, whatever. But we're always pleased when we can get people to agree to do shows like this, because, quite honestly, they turn out, I think, to be more interesting than some of the other shows we do.
Mine is reality through a real God who so loved me that he gave himself in the form of man named Jesus.
You know, a great big fella like you
Isn't
sitting
it
here
wonderful?
and talking
Lord
like
saves
this.
big old fellas
You
like
ought to
me.
be
I
ashamed
tell
of
you,
yourself.
I'm not
I mean,
ashamed.
You look
I'm so enjoying
intelligent
it.
and you're massive and all of that, and here you're talking the most crass kind of nonsense.
Isn't it beautiful? I tell you, in 50,
No, it isn't.
50 years from
It's
now,
kind
we'll
of
have
funny.
well, let's laugh about it.
Yeah.
50 years from now, we'll have an instant replay on this, and we'll see who's the fool. Huh?
Well, I'm not the least bit worried about it.
Me either.
Because here you are, and you're ruining your whole
You know what?
life and wasting
Last
it on
night,
going around trying to convert
in
B-girls.
Houston, Texas, I'm not only trying to convert B-girls, I'm trying to convert Madeline. Wouldn't that be something if you'd get
you don't
converted?
have to
huh?
worry about it.
Oh,
You
I'm not
don't
going to
have
worry about it.
at all.
I'm not going to worry about it 1 second. But I had 2,500 people in Houston, Texas. That's close to where you live.
2,500
Last night I
persons
said,
who were rather foolish. I bet you
Yeah.
charged them an admission
no,
charge,
they just
too.
gave a little offering to
Oh.
me. Isn't that wonderful? Huh? Tax-exempt offering.
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful? Non-profit
I figured as
corporation.
much.
Kind of like your church that you're
yeah,
building, huh?
Yeah, now
But
it is. But you know, my husband can't afford a coat like that.
He can't. This came from Goodwill Industries. I'll be glad.
Even there, he couldn't afford a coat like
I'll be
that.
glad. I've got 2,500 people last night on their knees praying for you.
All of those persons are
Praying
just
for
a
you.
little bit sick, because you
Aren't
know
they
what that
wonderful?
was?
What?
It was complete waste of energy,
Is that
waste
true?
of time,
The
and
Lord
waste
said
of
it's
human
not.
experience.
He said, "You ask and you shall
You
receive."
talked to the
huh?
Lord since then?
Yes, I talked to him today.
By telephone or
no,
how?
by straight line.
You admit that you started out, in your words, practicing on black women. And you said that after you gained sufficient confidence, you crossed the tracks and began to rape white women. As far as I know, you've never apologized to either black women or white women for that statement. Here, it
Can
would
we
be
do it
nice
right
for
now?
us.
We-
Yes,
okay.
can we do that?
Yeah, I apologize to all women, you know, individually, collectively, and to you, and without any reservation. I'm really sorry that I ever did anything of that sort. I don't do it anymore, you know, and I really discourage anyone else from doing it. And if men and young boys really knew how women feel about that, you know, and I think they wouldn't dare do it, because often men, when they do that, they're aiming at another response than the one that they actually get. You know?
But the fact is, the jury...
That's what you were fighting for,
The
I
jury
think.
never acted.
That's right.
The lawyers for
But, General,
both
did you ever
defense,
ask yourself
the
why-
prosecution never charged the jury. They never gave their final arguments, and neither did the judge have his last.
General, I wouldn't expect you to follow that case. You had other things to do. But I wonder, as a newspaper reader, you or the others ever asked yourself why, when you have a man on indictment for a 115-year sentence, you're spending millions of dollars from the Justice Department on that prosecution. Why was it necessary to hire people to go into his doctor's office to blackmail me? Why was it necessary to hire people to come up from Miami to beat me up in the Capitol? Why was it necessary to offer my judge the FBI directorship? That might suggest some lack of confidence in the validity of the legal case that was going on.
Well, yeah. Well, certainly those
Are you proud of an
no,
executive
no,
branch that did that,
no,
General?
no, those are deplorable events, but they're totally irrelevant to your trial. Totally irrelevant.
Well, Ralph, you're not reading the newspapers. I guess you're just listening to yourself too much, because right at the moment, General Motors and all the other companies have a great number of readily available smaller cars that give the kind of mileage that you're advocating, and the people are simply not buying them. Now, if you find a way to turn this thing around, we would be very thankful for it.
But
Or
why
the
do you have
corporation
such a
would.
difference? I mean, why does it have to be
This is
11
the-
miles per gallon in one car that's a little heavier, and another car you say gets 22 or 23 miles per gallon? There's no reason for that. You should have a minimum where all cars get at least 20 miles per gallon,
You
unless you
haven't-
want the oil companies. I know. I know the oil companies wouldn't like that. They wouldn't like cars that would, could burn at the rate of 26 miles per gallon because they'll sell less gasoline. The auto industry's been fairly close to the oil industry over the years. But you got to strike out on your own. Engineering integrity.
I remember when I first interviewed a gay person, it was about, I don't know, it must have been 9 years ago here, and the show was local in Dayton, and I was really scared to death because I felt that just to have one on the show, people would think I was. I can remember being very apprehensive. That afternoon, I came down here, downtown Dayton. I was standing in the corner of 3rd Main, and a little old lady came up to me with a babushka on and said, "Who's your friend?" And sure enough, the following days, we got a lot of mail from people who said, "Birds of a feather." So it took a while to rally from that, but now I've grown a little, and all that matters is what I know.
Thank you, Ray. And I'd like to say it's really a pleasure to be here this evening. You know, I've been sitting here watching the replays of the shows, and I'm really impressed with the Donahue show. I guess you get so close to it, you don't get a chance to see some of the really fine shows that we've done. So I'm really proud to be associated with the staff and with Phil. The next piece of tape you'll see, you know how Phil feels about the theme, how important music is to him. And he's a little bit country and a little bit contemporary. And one of his favorite songs is Feelings. And over a period of time, we got tired of Feelings because every guest that was a musical performer on the show was asked to do it. So this is a tape of that.
Nothing more than feeling, solamente dime, trying to forget one, como olvidar mis feelings of love, sentimientos de amor.
one of the very first remotes we ever did, and it was in Atlanta, Georgia. And we wanted to go in there and have fun, and it was the Dogwood Festival in Atlanta. This was in the middle of April, and this goes back about 7 years ago. So we booked 5 shows for that week in Atlanta, and they were all light, celebrity-type guests. And at the end of the week, and every day as the audience filed out, and there were like 300 or 400 people in the studio every day, it was, what's wrong with us in Atlanta? You don't think we can discuss the issues? It was a complete reversal from anything that we expected. They didn't want to see, I don't mean that they didn't want to see Bob Hope, because he didn't happen to be one of the guests that week, but they wanted us to do shows that they could discuss.
So, Mr. Howard, if I want to shave my head and sell books, candies, if I want to chant, if I want to live in a commune and wear clothes which you would consider to be strange, and I am 21 years old, that is none of your business, nor is it my parents' business.
That's correct, as long as it's your free will. What the true issue here is freedom of thought. If I was to come up to you and hold a gun to your head and force you to believe a certain way, it's quite obvious that
well,
your
wait,
parents...
that's not in the facts.
Could
There's no guns involved here.
I'd like to make a point, please.
Well, let's get the facts straight. Let's limit ourselves to the facts.
If I could make an analogy, it sounds like we were in court again.
Yes, it does.
Well, I mean, he said a gun.
I
There's no gun,
think the
and
judge might strike down your
I've
metaphor
never heard
just
of
a little
Reverend
bit.
Moon or the Unification Church holding a gun. Now, if someone holds a gun and said, believe this way, I'd agree with Mr.
Okay, we'll let him make his point.
My point is that if somebody was to hold a gun and force you to believe a certain way, it'd be quite obvious that you could do something about it as a parent. In this case, these young people are psychologically kidnapped and brainwashed. The court ruled that these 5 people had been brainwashed.
Have you slept in the White House yet?
No, ma'am, I have not and don't expect to. It kind of scares me.
Oh, really?
Why?
It's too big.
Now, you have an understanding with your brother that you can call him anytime and he will interrupt whatever he's in, whatever meeting, to take your call, but you haven't called him.
That's correct. It has been ever since he's been governor, but I never have called him.
When he was governor, you didn't call him?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, that's the kind of brother to have. You don't bug him at all then, huh?
I do. I told him I made one deal with him when he got elected president. I wouldn't bother him at all unless he messed with my peanuts.
All right.
You're having my baby. What a lovely way of saying how much you love me. You're having my baby. What a lovely way of saying what you're thinking of me. I can see it. Your face is glowing. I'd like to finish the rest of the song, but I've got to be going. Just a little bit of having your baby.
How much is the state of California spending to rehabilitate drunks? I mean, there is a...
About $30 million.
Really?
And 10 years ago it was $1 million, and we got just as many today. Maybe more. And I vetoed a gas tax that would have increased it even more than that, because I have a hunch that there's some things that are difficult to change. I'm willing to try a little bit, but there's an idea that government can... Now, what was that all about?
The God is disapproving of what you're saying.
You know, before we forget it, I know we want to plug the book, but I do want to congratulate you on winning the Emmy. This guy won the Emmy for the daytime shows right here. And you know,
Thank you.
Wait a minute. And a funny thing, he didn't think he was going to win, so he didn't go to pick up the Emmy. Dick Menzer as producer went. Can you imagine me winning an Oscar and sending Marlon Brando to pick it up?
Without the studio audience, there's no show. The show has succeeded because we involve the studio audience more than any other program in the business, period. In California, in Los Angeles and New York, audiences wave if they're lucky. Or they're very well screened, and they come in dressed like chicken salad sandwiches and try to win a prize and get Monty Hall's attention. Although I guess even that's finally been canceled. With our show, they're not auditioned. We don't force people to participate, but we're grateful that more often than not, there's not enough room in the show to get everybody on the air. That's what makes us go. When the woman in the fifth row stands up and says, "What did I tell you about my 14-year-old daughter?" That's our show.
Well, no, I think that we have our place in the military if they need us, and if we have
women
a war,
are in the
then I
military.
think we all can have our part.
Well, but women are in the military.
Right.
They do get the same rank and the same pay.
Oh, but they haven't, no, I don't think it's been equal.
No, that's right. They're exempt from combat. It sure isn't equal. And aren't they
But
lucky
we weren't
that it's not
drafted
equal?
either. Well, I mean, it goes both ways.
Do you want to stand, please? That is her argument, that she is saying we do not want the women drafted because they will be sent to combat, but they are not being sent to combat. There are women in there who want to go to combat and who are not allowed yet to go, and so your argument holds no water there.
Yes, it does, because if you want women to have an option to go to combat, you have to not ratify ERA. With ERA, women will not have the option. They will have to go into combat, just like men.
No, they won't.
You say that for sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Judge, you cannot get out from under this statement. It is really wide open, and are we supposed to take an impressionable person 15 or 16 years of age who can respond to something like that? And you just went through all the sex shops and the dirty movies and stuff. To respond to something like that and punish that person severely because they react to it normally. The issue, Judge, and the feminists and others are up in arms because of your suggestion that browlessness allows a young man to react in a forcible way, and that should be considered normal because of the way she looked.
You know, the whole issue here is that it even happened in a school. That girl shouldn't have been touched in a school. I mean, how could she be the way she dressed, if you're dressed properly and the whole deal? And it just proves that, I mean, even if she was punched in school, she should have been, these boys should have been convicted. Because, I mean, how could she have been enticing boys in a school?
What? Say again.
I'm a teacher in a junior high school and a high school. And don't you ever think that that's sacred ground, sweetie. There are things that go on in those school buildings that turn your hair.
Boy, oh boy.
And you just have to face it. When you got 50 kids in one classroom, I can't be out in the hall watching to see what somebody's daughter or son is doing. I've got to be.
This program happened 10 years ago in the most unlikely spot in this industry, Dayton, Ohio. But if you look at it again, it's not altogether that difficult to understand. This town is really, if we are the unusual developments in broadcasting, Dayton certainly is an unusual development in terms of municipalities. It is not on a navigable river. This town has, you would think of it as a satellite of Dayton, but you who live here know that it isn't. It's a town that was built on brains, Patterson, Kettering, and others. And if it had not been for the viewers of Dayton, with special emphasis on women, who, after all, since we aired in the daytime, really accepted the show first. It was the women of Dayton who perhaps watched a few games and soaps, but who wanted more from their television set than just games and soaps, were at least, well, we're helpless to say to an industry that was pretending that all they cared about was games and soaps, accepted what we did, gave us the rating that gave us the courage to go out and try and sell this thing in other cities. I will never be able to repay the community for the support that they provided the show. I know this sounds solicitous, and it's awfully difficult under circumstances like this to convey the real meaning of your feelings. But I promise you, I will never take for granted what this town did for us. It's funny, you know, when we first said we were going to syndicate, people said, you cannot syndicate a show from, the town is too small. You have to go to a bigger city. 6 years later, we moved to Chicago, and people said, you can't syndicate this show from Chicago, the town's too big. It is true that without the feeling here, that the fact that we came from Dayton forced us to be different. We were forced to improvise. While everybody else was putting on Anita Gillette and Henry Morgan and Henny Youngman and Charo, and you saw the same parade of show business talking heads, Phyllis Diller was not on call for us in Dayton, Ohio. We were forced to find a mother whose daughter was in the Greene County Jail in a fast to protest the Vietnam War. And a woman in the fifth row stood up and said, well, what if she dies? And the mother said, if she dies, she dies. This is her commitment. You are irresponsible as a mother. Well, this is her commitment. This is cruel what your daughter is doing. It is cruel what we are doing as a country. You know there are 100 young men coming home from Vietnam in plastic zipper bags. Why aren't you worried about that? Why are you so worried about your daughter? You should be worrying about your daughter. She's your... It went on like that. It was different programs like this. It was programs that featured in-depth discussions of issues about which women in the Dayton area clearly cared very deeply. In 1967, in November, when this all happened to us, the man who hired me, the man who took me to lunch, who paid the check, at a time when I couldn't get arrested in this business, Don Dahlman, the general manager of Channel 2, put us on the air, and we followed, you have to understand the environment into which we came. We followed Ruth Lyons, one of the most important, popular persons in the history of certainly the Midwest. Nobody was more popular. Sponsors were lined up to get on her show. So the tradition of the Crosley and then Avco enterprise was popular, good, solid, band, local television. And she would have people like Arthur Godfrey on. She had all the important... Here comes Donahue with two guys who want to get married. Artificial insemination. Well, I don't have to tell you what happened. I mean, there still are people out there who want the TV set to say only what they want to hear. And I want you to know, this man has the scars. He took as much flack as anybody who ever ran a television station in the history of this business. The point has to be made again. Never once did he come. Sponsors canceled. You know, general managers are numbers people. I mean, they are. They're nice people, but they're numbers. They're paid because the bottom line is the number. How much is he making? So, hey, it's, you know, you might just make more money running I Love Lucy, and it'll be a lot easier. We will never forget that without him, we would not be here tonight. I want to publicly thank one of the finest people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing in this business, Don Dahlman. Winston Churchill is supposed to have received a telegram from George Bernard Shaw, which read as follows. Sir Winston, I would be happy to have you in attendance at the opening performance of my new play on Broadway. Bring a friend, if you have one. To which Churchill replied, Sir Bernard, I shan't be able to be in attendance at the opening performance of your new play on Broadway. However, I would be happy to be in attendance at the second performance, if there is one. We've had more than one performance in this town. We had a 5-year celebration. Here is our 10th. If your enthusiasm can hold up, I promise you we're going to do all in our power to ensure that we have more performances like this. Thomas Wolfe was wrong. Not only can you go home again, but you can enjoy it very, very much. As my good friend Madeline Murray O'Hare would not say, God bless you and thank you very much.
One of the areas, though, that Phil constantly yells at me about and says we never improve is his theme music. We have written and rewritten themes. We have hired composers. We have hired string violins. We have hired harps. We have hired singers who hum. We have hired harmonicats. And now, Phil, I'd like to introduce to you your latest theme, Bring On the Theme. and gentlemen, from Phil's hometown of Centerville, the Centerville High School Band, and their director, Wayne Markowitz. You can see them December 31 when they perform at the Peach Bowl. How's that? Now, don't ever say to me again, we don't try on the theme. December 31 when they perform at the Peach Bowl. How's that? Now, don't ever say to me again, we don't try on the theme.
feature as well of the congressional debate over immigration policy. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Seminole, Texas.
That's the news this Thursday night. I'm Roger Mudd, CBS News. Good night.
Listen to this letter from Mr. and Mrs. Edward Helene. Gentlemen, we had a fire in our laundry room at 3:30 a.m. Our first alert smoke detectors saved our lives and the lives of our children. We would hate to think what would have happened without First Alert. The Helenes put their trust in First Alert, the smoke detector made by professionals, and it saved their lives. First Alert. This sound could save your life.
Easy Off did it. I got out of the oven and on to better things.
Easy Off makes oven cleaning faster, so it's easier than you ever thought it could be. Just spray Easy Off with anti-fume valve and...
Wipe off the grease, wipe off the grime. You're out of the oven in record time. Easy Off makes oven cleaning easier. Easy Off makes oven cleaning easier.
Easy Off did it.
Easy Off makes oven cleaning easier.
And during the final 30 minutes of our 90-minute News Center 7 edition, we'll have status reports on the Crime Victim Program and the Newfields Community Project. We'll have updated sports and weather reports and a travel scope vignette.
From the Miami Valley's leading news station, this is News Center 7.
The news continues with Don Wayne and Jim Baldridge.
Dayton police have filed charges of attempted murder and retaining stolen property against a man they say they arrested early this morning after an exchange of gunfire. No one was hurt. In the Dayton City Jail at this hour is 30-year-old Lawrence Jackson. Officers say Jackson was driving a car. They stopped at Riverview and Vernon, and Jackson ran. He was captured a few minutes later after an exchange of gunshots in the 1600 block of Spears, according to police. Remember the Ohio Crime Victim Compensation Program, that somewhat controversial project that got started with such fanfare about a year ago? Correspondent Judy Houck has found out it's having trouble, not in getting money, but in giving it away.
Even though it can be handled directly through the Attorney General's office, most applications for aid go through the Montgomery County Clerk of Court's office. Today
Not good.